All right, hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of Two Drink Max from the interview show over two drinks and nothing more. I'm your co-host Chase.
I'm your other host, Shane.
We've got a really great episode here today. We're going to take a bite out of the big apple, as it were. We're joined today by Craig Segal, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, podcast host of the CLS Experience, coach and advisor, 7-time marathon runner, TEDx speaker, and investor. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow, it's a nice introduction. Feels good. We were having a great conversation before we went on air. I love you guys. I'm pumped today. Let's get deep. Let's have some fun. Let's take it all over the map. Let's get nuts.
Let's do it. Let's get nuts, man. I love it. Well, the first question that we have for you is we have for all our guests. What are we drinking this afternoon?
So we're drinking Bulleit Rye.
Nice.
The reason why I chose whiskey is because it's funny because, tequila, whiskey, I can go back and forth if I'm being honest. But there's something about whiskey, whether it's the country music singing or some of the movies, specifically a movie that stands out. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges.
Absolutely.
He he won the Oscar for it. It's unbelievable. I don't know why, but a few years back when I was in a little bit of a dark season, that movie had a massive role in my life. It just really inspired me. And they drink a lot of whiskey in there. And I don't know, I just anchored it. And so I thought that would be a good one to utilize. And there's just something cool and about, whiskey and cigars and country and so forth. So that's why I chose it.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Excellent choice.
Cheers, everybody. Let's take a sip. Enjoy.
Cheers. We're going to take a sip.
Ooh. Yeah, that is good. I'm not the world's biggest rye fan, and I haven't had Bulleit Rye in a while, but that's tasty. It's delicious,
Yeah, I currently have mine mixed in coffee because it's still the afternoon here, and we all have things to do later. But it's really good. My memory of it is always it just tastes like spring break. I was telling Shane earlier, like it's a very visceral college memory for me when I drank a little more whiskey back in my day. But it's really delicious and also works great in coffee. Thank you for this choice.
Yeah.
Whiskey and coffee, that does sound delightful.
Hey, we've had some guests pick some drinks that are downright terrible, and we got to suffer through them. So we appreciate you tasting or picking something that's delicious. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So you have definitely had quite an interesting career, especially over the last 5 to 6 years. And we want to kind of talk about as much of it as we can. I think the kind of the natural point to start is before you kind of made a change in your life and you made a transition, you had a career on Wall Street. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's pretty cool. I mean, Wall Street is certainly an industry that I think a lot of people would, want to get into. It's certainly a desirable position. Can you talk a little bit about what you did, how you got into that? And then the follow-up would be, what was the kind of the breaking point when you decided this isn't for me anymore and I want to make a change in my life?
Yeah, I'll take you guys back.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't one of those cats that grew up knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Play shortstop for the Yankees or be an astronaut. I didn't know, if I'm being honest. And I went to college because that's what you were supposed to do. And that's all I knew at the time. So I graduated and I came home and I was in my parents' house. And I was like, I got to get out of here. It's time to start my life for real. And I was just very ambitious, but I didn't really have a direction to allocate my focus to. I was always infatuated with the stock market, but it was cool. I like making money and so forth. And so I ended up getting a job at a firm on Wall Street, basically a stockbroker. And right when I got there, I was totally a fish out of water. I remember coming, maybe one of my first days on the floor, I looked around, there was about 200 people and they were crushing it. They were having success in that line of work. And I remember thinking at that very moment where a lot of people might feel imposter syndrome, like, oh, I don't belong. I just said to myself, wow, if these guys are crushing it, it's only a matter of time before I beat on my craft and I combine my effort and commitment. And this should be interesting and exciting. And I remember going home right then and there, and this is a pivotal role in my movie. And because I didn't have that much confidence at the time, and I was definitely inexperienced, this is when I discovered personal development. And I went on YouTube and I started looking at videos of inspirational speeches, people that are now my friends, like E.T., Tom Bilyeu, Goggins, and them. And I just started to get inspired. And I started to realize that I could actually build myself up. And then I stumbled upon NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is a technology. And I just went down the rabbit hole, boys. I remember I sought out a mentor in the city, and I would meet with him once a week for years. And I would just build my confidence. I learned how to build rapport. I changed my perspective on how I viewed the world. Where I once saw limitations, I began to see opportunities. And I utilized that, and I started to have a ton of success on Wall Street. And at that time, I was motivated by making money, which is fine. I was unenlightened. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I started to do really well. But ultimately, Wall Street was a lot of fun until it wasn't. A lot of stress, predictability. Just want to make people happy. And so I ended up pivoting a few years after that, and I started my own company, basically still in finance, but something a little bit different. We're basically providing loans and working capital to businesses all across the country. A lot less stressful and lucrative,
Mm.
but not exactly, setting my soul on fire.
Mhm.
And over 13 years from doing the stock thing for a while to then starting my own business, I started to become very unfulfilled. I felt like I was here for something much more. I think we all go through that at some point. And, gratitude is a big thing, but it's tough to be grateful every day when you're waking up and you're going into something every day that feels out of alignment. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you have health and so forth. But I remember like after long days on Wall Street, I would come home and I just felt depleted, not tired. It's a big nowadays after a long day, I'm tired, can't wait to
Mhm.
do it. Depleted. And so I was kind of lost in the wilderness with no compass. Found myself in a pretty dark place a few years back. I just got out of a toxic relationship, which is never fun. And my best friend, my dad, had just gotten diagnosed with cancer. He's still battling.
Mm.
And so I had my own business. I was making money, but nothing else really seemed to be in alignment. Not the actual career, not my relationships, nothing. And so all of a sudden I started running. And this is pivotal because I'd never been a runner before. In fact, you couldn't pay me to run. But all of a sudden, I started running marathons, become obsessed. I ran four the first year that I started running. And I just started to really just build my vessel and become a better human being, better habits, more confidence. And it wasn't so much about the end result as it was about the transformations.
Mm.
And I started to realize this is pivotal that I could be successful at something that I didn't necessarily have experience in. And then fast forward the pandemic and the lockdown. I mean, I looked at that moment as an historic opportunity to just reassess. If
Mm.
not now, then when? And so I don't know how spiritual you guys want to get on the show, but I'm pretty spiritual these
Absolutely.
days.
As you like.
Yeah, I started to really connect with creator, and I
Mm.
was I was able to elevate my consciousness to a point where the ego, or I like to call him the opponent, didn't even have air, and I was able to draw upon divine downloads. And it was like, of course, I had been obsessed with personal development for 15 years, ever since that moment when I found it. I just didn't think I was worthy of turning that into a career
Mm.
until I realized this is much more than just a passion. I think this is my assignment. And so I put together a vision. I had no following, no celebrity friends, no connections at the time, but I put together sort of like a 10-lane highway with each lane representing a different way to make an impact and do
Mhm.
business. Coaching, speaking, podcast, book deal, TED Talk, all the things. And I leaned in. And for
Mhm.
the first time in my life, guys, I was in alignment. I loved it. Personal development all day. I love talking about it. I love helping people. I love speaking. And so it really began to take off. Left Wall Street for good. And over the last 3.5 years, the business just exploded. We have one of the top podcasts on the planet, 0.05%, sponsored by Mark Cuban, TED Talk, Wall Street Journal bestselling book. We have a huge community coaching. Just spoke at the UN 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And probably the coolest part, I also am getting married in September. So it wasn't only a career reinvention, really a life. And that's my story up until this point. So
Mhm.
out of alignment, borderline depressed, not like I was diagnosed, but I was feeling burnt out. Put it all together, really started connecting and tapping in, and the universe likes that, right? When you
Mhm.
act, awaken a desire, and you take uncomfortable action, that's when I believe you receive surprise support or assistance and so forth. And that's how we got to where we are today.
No,
That's
those are
incredible.
yeah, those are all amazing points. That's a very, very good encapsulation of everything that you've gone through and experienced
Yeah.
so
That
far.
was the Cliff Notes version, but
Those are the
yeah.
quick
Yeah.
notes. Well, now
We'll
we're here
expand.
to
Yeah.
unpack them a little bit. Yeah. When you first got into running, you said it was something that it felt something that you were aligned for. What were the very first steps you took into doing that? Like, did you immediately jump up and go, "I'm running a marathon," or you're gonna go, "I'm running these 2 blocks first, and then we'll build from there."
So one day I always worked out for like 15 years. I was into fitness and stuff like that. And like bodybuilder. I just like to, work out. I never really did that much cardio.
Mm.
One day I just felt called to go for a 2 mile run
Mm.
outside. And I remember being so humbled that that 2 mile run kind of transformed into a light jog of me breathing very heavy.
Right.
2 miles. Like, am I that out of shape or am I just mentally not as fit as I might have thought? And so I have an addictive personality.
Mm.
Nowadays, I'm able to use that for the good. And so I just went down the rabbit hole, started searching running, how to improve, how to be better. I hopped on a meal plan, started getting really healthy. And I just love running so much, because two things. Number one, I found running when I was in the darkest season of my life. kind of, I don't want to say it saved me per se, but it really gave me purpose in a season when I was looking for purpose.
Hmm.
And number two, running is such a metaphor for life. Why? Because anyone listening here today, if you physically are able, anybody can put one foot in for the other and begin to run, right? But it's that voice in your head, the ego, the opponent that we constantly have to create tools to combat, to get ahead of it, to overcome. And I just think that's such a beautiful metaphor for life. And so I'm really spiritual, emotional. I love the sport of running. And I'm so fond of it. And like I said, I found it a really good time. And so as long as I'm able, it'll have a special place in my heart and hopefully a part of my life story for the rest of my human experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, running is such a yeah. We absolutely agree with you that running is such a perfect metaphor for both physically and
Mhm.
professionally and emotionally, all sorts of things. What would be the one thing if you could go back and talk to your earlier self, or if you're giving out advice to anybody who's just getting started in running? What would be some of the things that somebody wish you had told you? Right? Maybe like you really got to invest in good shoes, or don't worry about your running times to start. What would be the things that you wish you knew, or somebody told you back when you were getting your start?
Interesting question. I've never been asked.
Mm.
It really depends what your intentionality is with running. Like, are you really trying to break records? Are you just looking to get in shape? Or just looking to challenge yourself? So based upon that, obviously, I give a little bit more focused advice. For me, I did everything really raw. Like I didn't have a coach at the time or anything like that. I was just all grit and heart. The first few marathons, guys, I had no strategy. I went out there and gave it everything I got.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was so expansive for me. So
Mhm.
I actually say, don't overthink it. Just continuously raise the bar and challenge yourself to continue to go longer or faster, whatever your goal is, and constantly push the envelope because you're capable of so much more than you think. And if you can do it with something relatively simple as running, those same characteristics are transferable to other areas of life.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
I was going to ask, how have you seen your personal ethos and your personal drive to obviously self-development stuff and running crossover? Like, have they intersected at all?
Yeah. So, when I started running, it wasn't the thing for me, like my career path, but running was the thing that led to the thing
Mm.
for me, right? Because it was in a dark season. I lacked direction and purpose, even though I had my career on Wall Street. But when I started running, I started really connecting and speaking to God. It was like my moving meditation. I
Mm.
started to get downloads, started to build confidence, started to become a better human being, straight up. And eventually, that was able I was able to take that in the beginning of the lockdown, put it all together and say, okay, running is great. I will always love it. But what's really the thing? And because of the confidence I developed
Mhm.
and connecting and so forth, I was able to put, I believe running played a big role in starting CLS and so forth. So I think that was pivotal for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's running is such a it seems so easy and it can be a little deceptive that way. But I think just the idea of I mean, one of the things that I love in your book is that you kind of so many things that you do professionally, you connect back to running in the sense that it
Mhm.
is putting one foot in front of the other, right? And setting goals for yourself and then meeting that goal and challenging yourself with the next goal. It is such a perfect metaphor, I think, for almost any progress that you want to do that it's not surprising to me that you used running as the tool to get you where you wanted to be in other aspects of your life. That's pretty, that's pretty fascinating.
And
What,
also, would say for everyone that's listening right now and they're looking for something more in their life or passion or purpose, don't just wait until it hits you. Try some new things. Clarity often follows action. And oftentimes, if you try something and it's not the thing, it will most likely be the thing that does lead to the thing, whether it's a relationship or a skill set or something that you develop. And running was that for me.
Yeah. When you're running, is that your time to kind of mentally start going through your checklist and building things in your head that you need to do? Or is running your time to do the exact opposite, shut everything out and just enjoy, being out and kind of in the city or doing what you need to do? Is it what how does running work for you mentally?
So let me take you back to this morning, right? So I have a morning routine. I do all my personal development before I leave the house. That's why I wake up earlier than I probably have to, because for me, for what I do, for my livelihood, my career, it's so important, guys, that I charge up in the morning. For me, that's personal development. I need to get myself in a really high vibration because I'm constantly pouring into people, speaking, coaching, all the things all day long. So I need to charge up. Then when I go for a run, so this morning I went for a 9 mile run. It was rainy out in Central Park. It was beautiful. So sometimes I listen to a podcast or an audiobook, sometimes I listen to music. but I'll definitely get ideas. There'll definitely be moments when I'm just connecting. I'm not thinking about anything specific. And that sometimes is when I get the best creative downloads that really help me move the needle or think of something that changes everything or this blockbuster idea that I never thought of. So for me, I definitely think and I'm definitely connecting. And usually that's my white space where I'll get unbelievable ideas to really push my life forward in many different areas.
Interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, because it's for me, I don't nearly run as much as you, and I don't nearly run as much as I should. But when I do, I find that it's the opposite helps me, right? Where I'm going through the mental checklist of other things I need to do. It gets me through the physicality of I'm tired, I'm exhausted. But if I'm just not thinking about it, I find myself pushing through, right? So it's interesting that you're downloading, right, when you're running, and I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm trying to output everything to get over the fact that I'm breathing harder, that I should be, running a little bit faster for sure. One question I wanted to just go back and ask, because I don't think I've ever actually gotten the opportunity to speak to anybody who's ever worked on Wall Street before. I mean, obviously, we're all huge movie fans here, right? You talk a lot about that in your book, and we're giant diehard movie. I went to film school, so did Chase. And so I think a lot of people have this perception of Wall Street, like from movies like Wall Street or perhaps The Wolf of Wall Street, right? That it's this kind of coked out party zone 24/7. And I don't think that that's actually accurate, right? That might have been the case in the 80s, but none of us are old enough to have worked in Wall Street in the 80s. Was part of your burnout there, was it like that at all? And was part of your burnout there also that it's way harder than people imagine, right? There's so much stress and expectation to perform at such a level. And if you don't feel like you're connecting, is that part of what was the burnout for you?
So in regards to like the movies like Wolf of Wall Street and Boiler Room, I can't confirm or deny because when I got into the business, I think it was probably '09. It was after all the Madoff
Mm.
stuff.
Right.
I think business became a lot more regulated, and it was just a different landscape than the stuff that you're referring to.
Mhm.
What I can attest to is just it's the best way to say this. It's just a different frequency, different type
Mm.
of people, different core values, and so forth. And so I'm just not the same Craig I once was, and literally just want to do a lot of good and help people. And that industry, I imagine there are other industries that are kind of similar. I don't know exactly, but it's just, look, you want to make an impact, right? You want to contribute to the world. And yeah, it's nice, make some money. It's exciting. It is
Mm.
those things, but ultimately there's got to be more that we're here to do. And I
Sure.
just no longer felt aligned to why I started in the first place. So as a result, for me, it was time to really expand, tap into higher consciousness, and really find what I'm here to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, it's yeah, I like I said, it's interesting because there are. I think if you were to ask a lot of people, there would be a lot of people who would love a career in that, but it's clearly not for everybody, right? You reached a level of success in that and then decided it wasn't for you. So it's cool that you were able to kind of align yourself with your priorities and realize this isn't for me. I got to get out. And
But
running
also,
kind of led the way
I
for you.
wouldn't have changed the thing. Like I believe life is full of seasons.
Mm.
And that season taught me so much. And it was a part of my movie, part of my journey. And I wouldn't have changed a thing. But for sure, it's at some point you continuously grow and you just don't have necessarily as much in common with the things that you once did.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we can all agree there's runners, there's casual runners, there's whatever, but then marathon running is a whole different level, right? Of running. When you started getting into running, how long was it before you started aiming towards running marathons and kind of completing them with regularity? Did that come later, or was that kind of from the jump? You're like, I want to do the New York Marathon, the Boston Marathon, anything like that?
Yeah. So like I said, I have a addictive personality.
Mhm.
So I remember I signed up for a scheduled 5K, which is 3.1 miles, conquered that. I'm like, all right, let's do a 10K, 6.2, did that. And then right after that, I'm like, all right, let's just play big. And I signed up for the New York City Marathon. This was all within a 6 month span of my first run.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I didn't have much time to train for the full marathon. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Um, but I just put myself in the damn arena
Mhm.
and it all happened pretty quickly. And then, the marathons are tough. They really are. They will humble you no matter how seasoned the professional you are. I mean, I've had a bunch of professional runners on the podcast and so forth. Now they've become my friends. Even the professionals that hold world records will say the marathon could be very unforgiving,
Mhm.
right? It can be a
If anybody ever told me that a marathon
Un-
is easy, I would straight up call them a
yeah.
liar to their
Yeah.
face.
It's not even physicality is one thing, but I'm telling
Mhm.
you, the ego will come in, the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, it's demonic. Like mile 18, 19, it's almost laughable. But when you can overcome that, you translate to different areas of life. But yeah, it all happened pretty quickly.
Yeah. Now, I feel like I have an answer just because you're a New York guy. You clearly have a lot of hometown pride. But is the New York City Marathon your favorite marathon to run, or have you gotten to run in some others that perhaps hit you differently or that you liked more?
So the simple answer is yes, it's my favorite. I've run New York, Lubbock, Texas, which is random.
Oh, Lubbock.
Tumbleweeds out there. We know Lubbock, yeah.
That's so funny. Philadelphia, San Francisco, which is cool and iconic. You run over the bridge. I ran Chicago, which is one of the majors, and I ran New York City 3 times, and I'm signed up to run it again this year in 2024. It's the best. It's not even close, in my opinion. I haven't ran Boston yet.
Mm.
People will, say that's a historic one too. I'm telling you, New York City Marathon Day is the greatest day of the year. Even if you're not running, if you're just a spectator, it's beautiful, it's special, it showcases grit, heart, the human spirit on fire, which is what life is all about. And it's the only day of the year when everyone in New York is on the same page. It's just really special. So long-winded answer, but yeah, it's my favorite.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I've seen pictures, I've seen videos. I can't imagine that there's really anything like it. I do have to ask you a fairly topical question. That it's been in the news recently that the New York local government is trying to force extra fees on marathon runners to account for the traffic closures, right, and all the fees that go along with that from the extra security and police. Any thoughts on those additional fees? Or are you worried that people might be priced out of running in the marathon? Or is New York City doing it right or wrong?
I didn't even know that, but I have noticed that a lot of the fees are going up just to run. It was just like
Mm.
such a pure sport. It's expensive to run. It is. Look, am I happy that the price is going up? No, but for me, the value that I get from getting in the arena and running those things is priceless. So I don't have too
Mm.
much to say about that.
Yeah, I read that the cost is going up somewhere in the 4-digit range. That they're trying to put it in the 4-digit range to just account for all the additional traffic and staff that it takes to pull that off. But obviously,
Great.
runners are upset because running's hard enough. You shouldn't have to pay in an arm and a leg to also run in an historic
Right.
marathon as well. So
True.
yeah.
True.
Very cool. Well, one of the other things that we talked about in your book as well was that, a while back, and remind me of the year, you were unfortunately a part of a very serious car accident. Can you talk about that? Can you tell us about what happened?
Mm.
Yeah. So I believe that was 2022, August. Um, I was walking across the street. I was going to my normal routine. I was going somewhere, run an errand, and I looked to my right, New York City, and there's a speeding blue car coming right at me. By the time I looked to my right, it was about a foot away.
Mm.
And I just remember thinking to myself, I just started like really going down spirituality and stuff. I remember thinking, we ain't getting out of this, but it was too late. But how can we minimize the damage? So I just braced myself and I put my forearm out like this. I imagine the listeners can't really see, but I just kind of like, I don't know what you describe that, like
Like a
horizontally out.
blocking stance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought that, if this thing destroys me and I land on my head, it could be done. But if it just mangles my arm, I could hopefully recover from that. So the car ran right into my forearm, and then I spun around, and then it grazed my hip and kept going through 2 red lights, gone.
Mm.
And I just remember like I continued walking down the block. I was holding my arm, and some big like truck stops, and I guess the car that hit me went around them. And like, holy shit, you okay? Sickest move I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't move, you guy got me. And they're like, call the cops. What the hell? That guy went through 2 red lights. And I was shaken up a bit. And so cops,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and an ambulance came, and my arm was okay. I was relatively unscathed, a couple bruises. And I want to be clear, the car didn't almost hit me. It smashed me.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was the weirdest feeling for a couple months after that. You know, New York City has become a bit of a shit show.
Mm.
And no problem saying that. I love New York City, but like they didn't really care so much. And I remember it bothered me because I just wanted some sort of closure. Like
Mm.
there's got to be some sort of accountability, right? So I went there. I had my case transferred to a different detective. I built a rapport with him. I was like, what's up? I went to the building where the cameras were. I got my own camera work, but it was kind of obstructed by a parked car.
Mm.
I'm like, what's the deal here? He's like, want me to be honest with you, Craig? I'm like, please. He's like, even if the guy came in and confessed, I was like, I can't sleep. I did it. I ran into this guy. He'd probably go to court and get off with some sort of like, I don't know, parking ticket or something.
Yeah.
Once I heard that, although I did not approve of it, I accepted the fact that I got hit. I'm good. And I focused more on, thank God. I know there's something happened there. And let's utilize this opportunity to continue and, make much more of an impact. And I let it go. After the detective said, nothing's really going to happen anyway, even if we caught the guy, that kind of gave me the closure I was looking for. But yeah, if I'm being really vulnerable for about a month, maybe 5, 6 weeks, really threw me for a loop. It's just crazy to get smashed by a car, be okay. And I think the part that really bothered me was that there was no accountability. It's like it's a war zone. When I heard that, whatever happened would, if they found it wouldn't have been a big deal anyway. I kind of let it go and I just said thank you and I just kept going on. But yeah, that was a weird situation for sure. But I feel very blessed, obviously.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the fact that you were relatively unscathed, I mean, that seems like a miracle in and of itself. Because, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you weren't, yeah, you were smacked, I mean, right around. So it's incredible that you weren't that badly injured. So I'm very lucky there. Interestingly enough, I was in an auto accident a couple weeks ago, and for ongoing lawsuit reasons, I'm not going to get specific on the air about it. But, in your book, you kind of talked about how after the accident, there was a period of time where you were dealing with fear, right? And you were, just kind of, I mean, something as basic as going out the street, was gave you pause for concern. And I'm currently there at this exact moment, right? I'm suffering from a little bit of PTSD, a little bit of shell shock where I don't feel like I'm ready to get behind the wheel of a car again, right? Because the last time I was, there was an accident and the whole thing. So what tools did you use, right, to kind of get over that fear and kind of get back into your regular life? What advice would you have for me to help me kind of get over where I'm at and just get back to my regular life?
Yeah, you just brought me back, if I'm being honest. I started to visualize when you were talking. I remember I'd be walking my fiance after that, and like maybe a week or two later, and like, New York's crazy to be like bikers or scooters on the curb.
Mm.
And a couple really startled me. And she's like, "You're right." And they weren't that crazy, but they kind of came out of nowhere. And I guess I had that PTSD in my head because I
Yeah,
turned around all right there.
it's real. It's very real.
It really is. I never experienced anything like that. Look, here's what I would say to you, brother. It's your race, your pace. Give yourself a little bit of grace. You'll be fine. This too shall pass, and you'll get back at it. I think that I wouldn't overanalyze the fact that you're dealing with it. It just happened. But I promise you, it's only temporary. That was an isolated situation, and you'll be fine. Give yourself a little grace.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Cause yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. Like for obvious reasons, like my wife is kind of doing all the driving and like there's been a couple of moments where like somebody will turn a corner a little quick and I'm jumping and it's like, it's fine. They were 40 yards away, but it sounds like we went through the same thing, right? Where it's like you're going through it. So it's good to know that you kind of were able to use some of the training that you have, right, and some of that progress that you'd made to get through it and just get back to, you're no longer scared to walk down the street anymore, right?
And I promise you, you'll be fine too.
Yeah, that's good, dude. Well, thank you. I appreciate the solid advice there for sure.
And this brings me to a question. Again, a lot of this is about overcoming fears and adversity and learning and growing and personal development. One of my favorite topics that's in your book is the neurolinguistic programming. I'm not sure everyone's heard of this. It is in the personal development fields and similar-ish to cognitive behavioral training that exists in therapy fields. Could you share a little bit about that neurolinguistics programming? I'm going to say it as many times as I can. How you came about it, how it's functioned for you, and what are some things people can use just to get this involved in their life?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying earlier when I first stumbled upon personal development. I came across NLP and I sought after a mentor that is a practitioner, and I just started studying with him for years. And I made a positive role in my life. I still use it much more spiritual these days, but the tools that I learned from NLP are huge. And it's funny, if you ask 100 people what NLP means, you might get 100 different answers. For me, it's like everybody looks at the world through their own frame, not actually as the world is. By altering your frame of the world, you actually change your reality, right? So if you think of the movie The Matrix, I'm sure you guys have seen that, especially
Many times, yeah.
you'll if you haven't already, look at the movie with a different lens. There's a scene when he goes to see the Oracle, Neo, and the special boys are in the room, and one kid's trying to bend the spoon. And he tells Neo, you can't bend the spoon, bend your mind. Right. So basically what he's saying is change the way that you look at the world. And then all of a sudden your reality begins to change. So where you once see limitations, now you start seeing opportunities. a lot of the stuff that I learned in NLP was modeling. So for example, when I first came and I had no confidence or experience, I was able to model people that I held in high regard, kind of borrow their attributes, make them my own, and really elevated my frequency or my confidence. I was modeling 007 for a while when I first got
It's a good one. It's a good one.
really helped me. That guy was cool, calm, collective, a lot of confidence with body language. It helps you build rapport with people, modeling and anchoring and mirroring and so forth, and just being able to change your perspective. And there's so many tools in it that are so beautiful. It also gave me strategies for business and so forth. It's just a technology that you can utilize to elevate your performance in different ways. Like whether it's cultivating confidence, changing what you associate pain and pleasure to, or learning how to build rapport for relationships, which is pivotal for anybody. All those tools would make it very tangible and very practical, and I love it very much.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's, not certainly not to oversimplify it, right? But you've heard that expression before that when a door closes, a window opens. It's like it really depends on how you're looking at the situation. You can focus on the fact that a door just closed, or the same situation you can cognitively reframe and notice that a window opened, and that's an opportunity, right? So that's absolutely a skill that I think has tremendous applications for everything from personal to emotional growth, professional growth, and all that stuff. That's fascinating, dude. It's cool that you were able to latch onto that so quickly and so early and use it to kind of propel the rest of your life.
100%. I still use it to this day.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, one thing that NLP cannot change the reality of is that I'm staring at 3 empty glasses on our desks here. So we're gonna have to take a quick 5-minute break. We're gonna make some refills, and we will be right back with more from Craig Segal.
Thank you very much for listening to part 1. We just wanted to take a moment during the break to let you know about the wonderful creative co-working space that is also our sponsor. That is The Muse Rooms, with locations in Burbank and Hollywood.
That's right, 2 locations for your convenience.
Right? Anywhere you want to go, they're there for you. It's a really wonderful creative working space. The amenities are great. It's incredibly designed, and also it has an incredible community, and they have all kinds of events and stuff to keep you engaged. It's absolutely something you should check out if you're looking for a place to get out of your home, do a little work, especially for those of us that have been trapped over the COVID and the work from home transition.
That's right. Good to get out, good to see people. And let's just face it, the Muse Rooms, it's just cool. You know what I
Right?
mean? It's got
super
that cool
cool
factor. Yeah.
Everybody's really fantastic there. So check them out at The Muse Rooms. That's MUSE.com. Yeah, great, very affordable, wonderful prices, and flexible for whatever you want. It's really, really great.
Check them out for all your creative space needs.
And now, time for part 2.
And we are back with Craig Segal, who is, so among many things, as we had talked about, used running to kind of transition out of a successful career on Wall Street and used it to ultimately create an incredibly successful, wide-ranging company that handles a large number of things. But one of the things that you have tackled is you wrote a New York Times best-selling book. It's right behind you there. We can see it. We have a copy of it ourselves. It's called The Reinvention Formula. One of the things that I really enjoyed reading about the book is that it was very stripped down, right? There's not a lot of fluff to it, right? It's not particularly difficult to figure out the meaning of what you're trying to accomplish. There's not a lot. When you started to write this book, was that a goal that you had, or did it just kind of come out that way? Your natural style seems to be very no fluff.
Yeah, so we got a really big book deal for first-time author. It's no secret. And one of the things that was really important to me is that it would be my voice. And so I had no ghostwriter. I wrote the whole thing. And I was even surprised when we did a round of edits. I thought they'd come back with all these edits because I'm not that experienced of an author, and there was barely any, just grammar. So they kept pretty much all the content. You'll notice, I think there's 41 bite-sized chapters. They're all very short.
Yeah.
You could pick up the book whenever you want over the years. Just read a chapter here or there. Yes, it has a law of continuity, but you don't necessarily need to. And it's just very me. It's just it's my weirdness. It's straightforward. It's blunt, it's bold. And then, as you can see at the end of every chapter, we give a little bit of a tangible exercise that someone could do so they could start applying it immediately. But yeah, that was definitely the intention. Look, I've read books before that just lose you in the fluff, or it's long for no reason, and it's hard to even finish it. I'll never forget, my fiance was reading a book back in the day. I mean, the guy's a legend, Jordan Peterson, but she was on one for a year. I would ask her, why are you further? She's like, to be honest with you, I keep reading it. It's a little confusing. I don't even know what I'm reading.
He's a wordy fellow.
Yeah, that's right here. A wordy fellow. So I wanted to make sure mine was very straightforward. Anybody can consume it. The nuggets are there. And that's not necessarily rocket science. And it's a quick read.
I appreciate it a
Absolutely.
lot. It is a very quick read. I think one of the chapters I enjoyed was the burning the boats. Seems very quintessential to your method of operating in the world of like no go back, never surrender, never give up. Like forward is the only direction we have. How does that play out? Just how did that play out in one writing the book and just in your life in general?
So for me, when I think of burning the boats or the ships, to me, that means being all in whatever it is that you're doing. So let's remove the safety net, right? Because anytime that you have a plan B or a way out, you're giving subconscious energy to that way out or that plan B. So by burning the boats of taking away a way of retreat or surrender, you're now in the damn thing and you're going to
Mm.
either make it work or die. Obviously, not that graphic, but that's what it is to me. Right. And so, like, for me, I had to leave Wall Street and go all in on CLS. I couldn't just tiptoe. There's a lot of like, not wannabe entrepreneurs, that's not the right word, but people that are like in corporate, but they kind of want to be an entrepreneur. They start something else and they're still at their job and they're trying to make it work. It's just tough, right? Because you have so much energy still in the thing that you're unpassionate about or lack of alignment while you're trying to get this up and running. So for me, ripping off the band-aid, allocating all your focus and your energy to the thing that you want to do is a recipe to get that thing off the ground and to have success.
And chasing that success, you've had a lot of success with your company, including this book, the podcast. Could you tell us a little bit about CLS and what your goals are with that company?
So when I first started and I was thinking about what it could be, I looked at people that were doing something similar. I don't want to be the next Tony Robbins. I want to be the first Craig Segal. I'm different. I'm weirder. I don't know if I'm weird, but I'm definitely strange. And I just think of us as the face of personal development, not today, but over the next, 30, 40 weird years, God willing. And if you look at what we've done over the last 3 years, the trajectory says that we're on the way, right? In just 3.5 years time, no marketing or PR, stuff like that. We've one of the biggest global communities, obviously the book, the podcast, all that stuff. Just want to help a lot of people. There's so many people out there that are looking to reinvent themselves, whether it's a career identity, they know that they're here for more. I mean, I put this in our TED talk, which we didn't release yet. There was an alarming stat that only 20% of Americans are finding purpose in the work that they do.
Hmm.
Wow.
It's a very low number. And I think the best way to achieve burnout or to be out of alignment is to not have purpose in what you're doing. And I speak from contrast because that was me for so long.
Mhm.
And I just want to help a lot of people. I want to collaborate with awesome humans. I want to make a lot of money unapologetically so I could do great things with it. I want to have fun. And by creating this life over the last few years, a life by design, I mean, I love this stuff. Like between me and you guys and the audience, I would do this for free. But
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm making more money now than I was making on Wall Street,
Hmm.
but it's just an energetic exchange. It's a byproduct by adding value, by being connected, by helping others reveal their light and so forth. And so I just love this stuff. And I want to take it as far as it can go. And what is my definition as far as to go? Where it can impact as many people as possible in all the different ways, podcast speaking, coaching, different now I'm investing in companies and so forth. So whatever that looks like. But we're just getting warmed up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess one of the things I'd love to know is right. As you left Wall Street and you're kind of transitioning in your life and your career, you know that you love empowering people and personal development is kind of a joy of yours and something that you want to share with the world. You also know that you have speaking skills and cutting out the fluff is kind of a talent of yours. But when you're designing CLS, right, it's like staring at this giant kind of block of marble, right? And you're trying to carve out the David from that marble. When you were looking at starting CLS, it was very kind of nebulous. How did you kind of chip away at that marble to marble, I should say, not marble, chip away at that to kind of craft CLS to be what it is and, today and what you wanted it to be? How did you kind of start?
So I have not done everything right my entire life, not even close, but I've done a
Mm.
lot right since I reinvented myself, started CLS. One of the things that I did really well, which is a chapter in the book, is called Messy Action.
Mm.
I gave myself permission to be less than perfect and just get out there and show up. I remember when I first started for about the first 6 months of CLS, I didn't have a laptop. I was literally making content from my phone, just
Mm.
turning it on, putting out videos, very energetically passionate, and I just wanted to add value. And I was raw, I was determined, and I was super consistent, which is one of my best superpowers, which ironically is accessible to everybody. People
Mm.
overlook being consistent and being disciplined. And I didn't have it all figured out. I had my 10-lane highway, coaching, speaking, podcast, book deal, all that stuff, but a lot of the lanes weren't even established yet. So in the beginning, I just wanted to add value and build a community of people that were interested. Big difference between an audience and a community. An audience is like one to many. A community is kind of everybody engaged, so forth. Where you don't even have to be in the room and people are interacting. That's one of the things I take most pride in with the CLS membership and so forth. And so I just got out there and took messy action and let things unfold. And based on my experience, when you awaken that desire and you put yourself out there, that's when the creator meets you halfway.
It's interesting that you kind of phrased it like that, right? Because there's a very classic saying that if you want to make God laugh, make plans, right? So you have this 10-lane highway. Do you feel like you've gotten through all 10 lanes? And if so, are lanes just kind of adding themselves as opportunities present themselves to you, or are you finding that the best way for you to move forward is to, design and build those lanes, right? Are you letting things happen naturally, or are you making architectural plans to get where you want to be?
That's a cool question. It's funny because at the end of last summer, we just launched the book. It hit Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller, which is kind of like the last lane. And I had this moment for a couple months. I didn't really talk about this, where I just felt like, wow, we just hit a lot of the big audacious goals that we had pretty quickly in less than 3 years. Typically, people have like a 5 or 10-year plan, right?
Right.
So for me, we hit all of them in the first 3 years. And I kind of started thinking, well, what's next? And I didn't think that far ahead because this stuff happened so quickly. And so then I started adding lanes and figuring out what else I can do. Can I expand on the current ones? How do we take this thing to a whole nother level? And so I did have that moment. And so to answer your question, now I'm starting to tap into other things. Like, for example, mutual friend Dave and I have become partners. We invest in companies now and so forth. Started doing VIP dinners. We have people flying from all over the country to do a special dinner in New York City. There's many new things that I'm looking into that are now adding a whole nother level of expansion after hitting the initial 10 lanes. So it's a cool question and kind of a long-winded answer, but we're still expanding and creating new ones now.
That's cool. Has there been any lanes that got added, maybe not necessarily by accident, but that surprised you, that just got added by opportunity? You're like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to do this, whether it was podcasting or whatever. Is there something that you're now involved with that was kind of a happy accident for you?
I would say the last two that I just mentioned. So Dave and I becoming business partners and starting, because we have so much momentum, I say very humbly, a lot of companies are now coming to me to be an advisor on their board to help them with direction, marketing, personal branding, just business mindset and so forth. So that wasn't necessarily in the beginning plans, but I think it's so fun and exciting, right? It's another way to add impact, not necessarily just CLS, help other companies and be an advisor to them. So that's been really fun and exciting. And then we spoke at the UN about a month ago, and I was thinking, how would the highest version of Craig leverage this? And so I invited people to the UN talk, and then after that, I created the first ever VIP dinner in New York City. So everyone that came was able to come to dinner with us. Obviously, they pay a little something. And business model so simple yet so effective. Brought great humans together, awesome connections. And so then we just had another one for my birthday about 2 weeks ago. We had 40 people there, and that thing is growing now. So that kind of happened when I challenged myself to play bigger on not just settling for the UN talk, but how do we even leverage that into bigger opportunity to help more people? So the VIP dinners came about. So between that and the investing, yeah, it's so fun and it's so exciting. There's so much out there for us to tap into.
And it sounds like, I mean, there's lanes all over the place for you. We wanted to circle back and ask a little bit more about the UN. What an incredible opportunity to get to share your message with people all over the world. Could you explain a little bit about who you spoke with and what you shared with them?
Yeah, so we spoke to Sri Lanka, the permanent mission of Sri Lanka,
Hmm.
and
Wow.
kind of there, and it was just a really, really probably one of the coolest, not just moments of CLS, but I would say of my life, if I'm being honest. Just a different audience, and what I'm hoping that did was kind of open the doors for other people in my field, speakers, to be able to have opportunities like that, because you don't typically see speakers going to the UN. It's usually like entrepreneurial events or companies, stuff like that. Different crowd, different frequency for sure. But they really loved it. They were asking me questions after for almost an hour, like really interesting. Like the Prime Minister of Mongolia was asking me
Hmm.
questions, kids and stuff. It was just awesome. It was surreal. It was a different type of environment. It felt very classy, and it was just a really cool opportunity. And I look forward to doing more stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the most surprising thing about speaking at the UN? The thing that you that didn't meet your expectations or exceeded your expectations?
I think that I did my homework, obviously, and I was speaking to a lot of people from Sri Lanka. And so, based upon spiritual practices, I think a lot of them practice Buddhism,
Mm.
and that's a little bit of a different philosophy than spirituality that I subscribe to. So I wanted to make sure the content that I brought was relatable to everyone in the room. And so I made my stuff a little bit more practical for that specific event.
Mm.
And they just ate it up. They loved it. It was so attainable for everybody there. And it was just great conversation. People that I don't necessarily have much in common with. We were all bonded in that moment and connected by some of the personal development stuff that we were talking about because
Mhm.
personal development is universal.
Mhm.
So it's really cool and special and unique.
Yeah, I would imagine there's a very specific kind of dress code for the UN, and I don't just mean physically. I mean like also I mean because you're not going to go to the UN and talk about like your favorite Metallica records, right? Like that's not what the UN is there for, right? So it's like I imagine there's kind of a decorum that you have to kind of get into, and so it must be kind of a unique feeling to kind of fit into that very specific style of I belong here, you know, and I'm addressing these people because I was invited. So that's got to feel very satisfying on your end for sure.
100%.
That's
And
cool.
more importantly, when are we going to see you address the General Assembly and change the lives of every country on the globe?
I know. I wouldn't rule it out.
Mm.
That round room with all the flags in the back and kind of the bizarre looking stadium seating, everybody sitting next to their interpreters. Yeah, that'd be cool. We'll keep our eyes on CNBC to see you on there one day for sure.
For sure.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, there are many goals when it comes to
Mhm.
personal development and kind of making yourself better. And some of them are grand and, you know, kind of wide, wide sprawling, whether they're professional or, you know, emotional. But there's also personal goals as well that personal development and being a better person can help you attain. And it seems like, you know, you have in the last few years found a really meaningful relationship or meaningful partner. And so we'd love to hear, you know, a little bit more about how your personal development enthusiasm kind of translated to finding the partner that you felt was the best for you. We're excited to hear that you're getting married here in a
Mhm.
few months, so that's got to feel cool. But what was that journey like for you?
No, it's a great question. I think a lot of people forget the second word in personal development is actually development. We have
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
to develop ourselves. And I think that if you're not spiritually or even just in general, just working on yourself constantly, essentially like you're dying,
Mm.
right? Because other people are evolving and expanding, and you have to elevate your consciousness. So I'm working on myself every day like a lunatic, simply because of what I do. So I always like to charge up, like I was telling you guys before. But when you develop yourself, you work on yourself. So you begin to heal, you begin to learn how to communicate better, how to be more humble, how to resist temptation of giving into the ego, how to connect, how to go deeper. All this stuff makes you a better human or someone that can have a better human experience. And that translates into your relationships, whether it's business or personal. And so my fiance, who I attracted when I started to really become the best version of myself, I attracted to that version of myself, whereas Craig prior to that was not the best version of himself. So it's probably attracting a similar pattern of girls.
Mhm.
So I really started working on myself. So I think it translates to all areas of your life, specifically family, business, relationships, what your own capabilities are, so you can tap into more of your own potential. It's across the board. And yeah, as a result, because I was working on myself, I was able to attract the perfect partner for me where I'm at and my trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. Because relationships are obviously a two-way street, and so I would imagine part of the personal development journey is also kind of learning what my standards are, right? And so that when a potential partner comes along, I can recognize that this is a person that works for me, or is a person who is I'm not going to mesh with, right? And so,
Right.
did that personal development journey help clarify that this person, my fiance, is the one for me?
And also, like when you're a little bit younger and more immature, you don't think like that. You don't have the consciousness. You just like, oh, this girl's pretty, right? Or she's nice, or I could change her, or whatever the case may be. But when you get a little bit wiser and you start to develop yourself, you start to realize that there's more important stuff. Like, is there real alignment in your core values? Can you really see being with this person? Could she potentially be a good mom, a good wife, or his, whatever the case may be, guy, girl. So you really start to think bigger. And, being in a relationship is not easy. Like, for example, I believe that the right partner, your soulmate, there will be arguments and stuff. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but with no friction, there could be no light. the right soulmate is there to hold up the mirror and really challenge you and help you expand and so forth. In fact, if you're in a relationship and you're never fighting, I don't think that's a soulmate for the body.
It's a time bomb.
Yeah, it's kind of like a paradigm shift, but you're supposed to argue and fight a little bit with the common goal of that's going to help us grow to new levels and so forth. And so you really want someone there that can really challenge you and elevate you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I never thought I'd make this connection, but based off the conversation we're having, I can say that marathons and relationships are similar in the sense that they're not always easy, and anybody who sells that tells you that is lying.
Well, you're not in the right one because a relationship shouldn't be easy.
Right. It's work. Absolutely.
I mean, what were some of the earliest challenges you found in your relationship that you both worked through together?
It's not like there's something specific that's been like a huge obstacle. I think just we both have similar personalities. So oftentimes in a relationship, there's like, what's the nice way to put this? There's like a go-getter, and then there's someone that's maybe a little bit more laid back.
Yeah.
So I think that I never publicly said this out loud, but I think that the one challenge that we really have is that we're both kind of like A-type personalities, high achievers, and really like ass kickers, for lack of better words. And so what happens when you bring two of those together? No one wants to back down. But with the right mindset, actually it's a recipe for great success because you constantly push each other to expand in general. I think that's probably it. Other than that, just typical relationship stuff. But I think one thing that's really important for anyone listening today is don't deny the fact that there will be obstacles in a relationship, just like life. But it's good to have an understanding with your partner on how you both will handle inevitable fight, argument, or obstacle, right? They don't get really below the belt. Like maybe you make up before the night is over, whatever the case may be. There's ways to handle things so that they're done in a productive manner. And don't get like, toxic and stuff like that. So I think it's good to be intentional and to have a plan on your commitment to the relationship and how you foresee it going for the next 90 years, God willing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm no expert and I don't claim to be, but in a couple months I'll be coming up on my 10-year wedding anniversary, and I agree with everything you just said, brother. That sounds absolutely right. You got to be intentional, and fighting is going to happen, disagreements are going to happen, but you got to be intentional about what you're doing and how to get through it. And it sounds like you guys have got the great foundation for a lasting relationship. I'm excited for you.
I appreciate that.
Are you
years? It's a nice feat.
Thank you. Yeah, it absolutely is, man. It makes you feel old, but at the same time, it's like, it feels like I accomplished something. Just out of curiosity, you guys going big wedding? You going little wedding? Kind of somewhere in between?
It started off, we wanted to be very small and intimate, and we have such a huge community.
Yeah.
Nicole, the CLS, membership, my family, but there's thousands, can't invite them all. So it's like if I open up this door, then I got to open up that door. So the intent was to keep it smaller and intimate. But now all of a sudden, it's getting bigger and bigger. But we're hoping that it'll be on the average to the smaller side when it's all said and done.
Gotcha. Yeah, they can absolutely get away from you for sure. Trust me, I know the feeling. Yeah.
You should tell everybody can come, but they just have to run a marathon until they arrive at the wedding. So if they run those 26 miles, they can walk into your wedding. That should be your deal you make with everybody.
I love it. I imagine no one will come.
And it is weird to have like arguments with like your family where it's like you're talking to your mom, your dad, and you're like, oh, my great aunt's sister needs to come. And it's like, no, it really doesn't. Absolutely. They don't need to be, but it's kind of a push and pull, dude. Well, it sounds like, are you guys taking the bull by the horns, like in terms of planning it together, or is she kind of taking the lead and you're just along for the ride, or?
Well, we have a wedding planner.
Okay. There you go.
I needed someone to quarterback this in because I have like 6 full-time jobs, building a business and so forth. So it's been very helpful, but make no mistake about it. There's still a lot of work involved because we still have to make decisions. It's not necessarily more work than I thought it would be. But I want to be straight up with you guys and be honest. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. You want to do it. I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect. I know that's like a little bit far-fetched, but I look at it like a chessboard or maybe a puzzle. You want all the right to be on the board. One thing I will say is this: I'm gonna have so much experience for planning big events after this because now I know all the nooks and crannies. So it's fun. It's a little challenging, and it is a lot, but it's not overwhelmed. It's abundant. So it is what it is. Hopefully, we're doing this once,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you the one piece of advice that I wish somebody would have given me on my wedding day, which is have the caterers prep you guys 2 meals to go that you can
Yeah.
take home, because you're going to be so busy on that day greeting people and doing things and making sure that the trains are running on time that I guarantee you when dinner gets served, you're going to eat 2 bites and then you're going to be off to the next thing. And then 2 hours later, 3 hours later, everyone's gone. You're going to be like, God, I'm famished. And we paid so much for this prime rib or, whatever it was. I wish I had some. So if you have the caterers make you 2 to-go things later that night, you're going to be like, oh, thank God I have, I have the dinner I paid for and it's delicious.
That's all advice, brother. Thank you. And also this place specifically, one of the things that they're known for is their food. So
Yeah.
if you ask for like 5 to-goes and have that, thank you for that.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, you will be surprised. Like, you think you're going to eat, you're not going to eat that day. And then later, when it all winds down and the adrenaline comes down, you're going to be like, man, I'm famished. So there you go.
Sounds like it's going to be a wonderful wedding, and congratulations to you on that planning. Hopefully you do make it through it and all goes great. Wanted to ask, circling back to CLS, what would you think makes CLS different from other organizations for other people working on human development?
I can only speak for myself,
Mhm.
but I care. I actually give a shit about helping people, almost to the point where my fiance, who's that bit of an immigrant mentality, says you give people too much hope sometimes. I generally want to see everybody win and win big. I know that the spark of the creator is in all of us, even the people that end up turning evil, whatever the case may be. And I know that there's a way for people to tap into that, to channel the gifts that were given to them, to make a massive difference, to make money, have a lot of fun. And I know what it feels like to be totally unfulfilled, out of alignment, depressed, if you will, and then turn it all around in what most people consider a relatively short amount of time. And so I want to help a lot of people. I'm also strange. I'm very authentic. Everyone should be authentic. That shouldn't be something that you have to mention. But at this day and age, you go on social media, a lot of people are not what they seem.
Mm.
So again, I can only speak for myself. What you see is what you get, and I really, really, really care. And I think that's why the community has exploded the way it has, is because of the intimacy and the attention that I give to everyone in there to the best of my ability. So again, you can't speak for anyone else, but I actually give a shit.
I no, and that
That's
comes
great.
through very clearly in the book, right? The painstaking lengths that you went to make it practical advice in a bite-sized manner shows that you really care, instead of just grandstanding on a soapbox with kind of nonsense that, let's be honest, in this arena there are some people who don't put as much of their personality and their effort into it as you do. So it's refreshing to know that everybody who's a part of the community, you really do care, and we can tell that you want them
Mhm.
to succeed for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that, guys.
Yeah. Well, so we talked a little bit about building new lanes, but what, so you had kind of mentioned some dinners and some working with some companies, but for everybody listening, what are some other kind of upcoming exciting things that you've got going on with CLS that people who are, if you are listening and you're interested, which you should be, what
Mhm.
can people kind of start to follow you with in terms of like what's new and exciting for you?
So we have the community, the CLS membership. It's growing rapidly. We have almost 1,000 people in there. It's a monthly subscription. We meet 3 Wednesdays a month for a live call, coaching, mentoring, strategy. We bring on huge guest speakers and so forth. It's a lot of fun. It's community, people supporting each other.
Mhm.
A lot of the same people are the ones that come to the VIP dinners and so forth. So I think this day and age, something that really excites me is, instead of competition, is collaboration. People collaborating like we are right now, just having a great conversation, providing a lot of value for people. So I'm really big into that. Other things, the podcast, the Scale Experience, anywhere you buy books, the Reinvention Formula. We also have a daily texting community. We send inspirational nuggets throughout the week, totally free. Anybody can join. Just text 917-634-3796. Text Bulleit Rye. So I knew that you heard it here.
There we go. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, just come say hello. We're everywhere right now, doing a lot of things. And I love to engage to the best of my ability. So whether it's community, we also do one-on-one coaching and stuff like that. A lot more selective and a lot more expensive and so forth. But take the free things, the book, podcast, social media, and so forth. And come say what up. I love to engage.
Absolutely. And speaking of engaging, where can people follow you on socials?
At Craig Segal _CLS. Our website is cultivatelastingsymphony.com. And the texting community, which I gave you, and Craig Segal everywhere.
Craig Segal everywhere.
Well, let me ask you this, just kind of as we begin kind of the wrapping up here. What is, I just said, you are a no fluff guy, which we super appreciate, and we know you're pretty succinct. If you want people to take away one nugget, one thing from this show today, what's the one thing that you want all of our listeners to know that they can be better, or what can they do to make an improvement in their lives?
Can we get deep?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's a lot of abundance in this world. A lot of people are searching for the next thing, how to tap into it, how to be more successful. What I want everybody to take away is that the light of the creator, the quantum, the infinite, whatever it is that you subscribe to, if there's something bigger that's happening beyond our logic here, which I think we all can agree with, it's infinite. It's everywhere here and now. We don't need to create more of it, whether it's money, it already exists. There's already a market. We don't have to create it. What we have to do is expand our vessel so that we can receive more of what's already there. So there's not all this other stuff that you have to go do. You have to be more so that you can receive more. For example, let's say someone wins a lottery and their container for wealth was 60 watts, right? So all of a sudden they have millions and millions of dollars. They can't sustain that. Typically they end up going bankrupt, turn into drugs because their vessel couldn't hold that. So it implodes or overflows. But as we continue to expand our vessel on what we're capable of, we can learn how to receive more of what's already out there that has our name on it. So a little bit of a paradigm shift, but it's all out there, guys. It's on us to be more, to be able to attract and receive it.
That's incredible advice.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's practical too. It's as I suspected it would be. It was bite sized and it's practical, man. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to swing by and chat with us today. We really do appreciate it. I mean, this conversation is fascinating, and you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that a lot of people are going to listen and they're going to take away some great information from this. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to do this.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. It really was an incredible talk. Be sure and check out Craig all over socials, Craig Segal _CLS, and go get the book, The Reinvention Formula, How to Unlock a Bulletproof Mindset to Upgrade Your Life. It really is an incredible read, and you're just going to get a whole lot more of what we got today. So it's really great.
That's why
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
That's why he picked Bulleit Rye, dude, because it's the bulletproof mindset. There we go. We're
We
tying it all
just
back.
right. We just got that subplot.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Please follow our show as well on Instagram at 2drinkmaximum. Thank you to the Muserooms for being our sponsor, and we will catch all of you on the next episode. Cheers.